Good morning, gentlemen. Hello, good morning.
Good morning.
So before we start our breakfast, I just wanted to bring your attention. The Federation puts out a magazine called Attitudes, and Abe, our president, is a featured topic in the book. So I'm going to pass it around in case you didn't see it. So congratulations to our president.
Now, one thing, and we didn't get a vote on this with the board. We spent over $100 airbrushing this paper. But it was worth it. Can you imagine, without the airbrush?
Is that his mugshot? That was a mugshot.
No, well, no. This is the post office, not the mugshot. The post office. Yeah, it's
Have you seen this guy?
no conviction. No conviction. Indictments, no conviction.
Okay, thank you guys. It was an interview on the immigration experience, and so it came out really well. So thank you. Okay, any new members? Any new members, Ron?
Right.
Okay, please get up and introduce yourself.
Saul Cohen. What else do you need?
What have you done in your life? What have you done in your life?
I've survived.
Yeah, we all have that.
Nothing special. I have my own company. I live in Montebello, if you know where that is. And traveled a lot. Saw the world.
Social Security number.
You know what that's my prison number.
Your bank account.
What's your bank?
0.
Can you tap dance?
So, anything else anybody want to know? Nothing exciting.
Give us a little history. What did you do when you were in real life? What did you do in real life? Profession, and so forth.
I tried to make a living. I had a manufacturing company. And thank God it worked out.
What'd you make?
None of you would know it. It's PBA. You own a building, a store, or what have you, where every time you go across the bridge and you ask for a receipt, we manufacture the paper for the receipt, the ATM paper, the supermarket paper, anything like that that you need a receipt.
Okay, thank you. You're off. Yeah. Anybody else? Anybody else? New member? Okay. So let's do the Pledge of Allegiance. Please wait. Stand up.
Please rise.
Okay. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic in which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
You want me to sing this song now? Yeah.
Are we doing Hatikva?
Getting out of the way. Please, just a moment of silence for in memory of Israel. Thank you. Okay, so let's do Hamotzi, and then we're going. Let's do Hamotzi now. Baruch Atah Adonai. Baruch
Okay, please let people that have a problem to go first. Go ahead and enjoy breakfast. 50-50s, we're going to have, the last thing that's going to happen today is the election of the 50-50, so don't leave before that. Okay, so let's do some announcements before the speaker. Ed? Yeah, again. Yeah, you're next.
Okay, a couple of brief announcements. You've heard this announcement before, but it's time for me to present it again. So you're aware that the tradition in the Jewish community on Christmas Day is to go to a movie and a Chinese restaurant. But our men's club, except for the COVID years, have gotten together every Christmas Day for a brunch. We call it Coping for Christmas. You're going to get an email. There's also an announcement at your table with the name of the restaurant. Anybody can tell me what the name of the restaurant is? Royal Buffet. It's on Route 73, thank you, in West Berlin. We're getting together at 12:30. Wear your shirts, and hopefully we'll enjoy. Bring your guests. Bring guests, and enjoy yourself. The other brief announcement, especially for new people here, we have a book exchange, and every month we ask you to bring your books, take books, also bring food. I'm very proud of you guys. There's food on that table that we give to the Jewish community every month. So next meeting, bring some food as well. Thank you so much. Yes, sir.
Yes, include other than wives and better...
Yeah, bring children, grandchildren, friends, neighbors. Anybody they want to bring. I'll tell you in a minute. I'm going to answer the question about the food. So in the restaurant, when you come in, you pay at the door, so you don't have to worry about separate checks. It's a buffet. And there's a meeting on your right. When you come in, after you pay, there's a room on the right. We have a reserved room. So bring friends and guests and everything. The other announcement that Bob reminded me, we also collect eyeglasses. On that table, you'll see some people brought eyeglasses, and we give them out to the Lions Club. Okay? Enjoy the rest of your day, babe. Yes, sir.
Sign up for that.
Just come in.
Just come in.
Just come in.
What's your email said signing up?
Yeah, it said RSVP, but you can ignore that. Just come in. Actually, can I get a sense how many people are planning on coming? How many people are planning on coming to the left side here? Anybody planning on coming to the coping? Okay, thank you.
It's $20 because of Christmas, so usually it's like less than that. Okay, the other Ed. Ed.
So I think most of you are aware that we have a mitzvah card program. And the way it's worked for 100 years is Len Berman has handled the cards, and you sent him an email if you were aware of the program. When you had a mitzvah or a death in the family or that type of occasion, and he wrote a card and mailed it for you, and you sent $5 through the website. But what we've done occasionally is offer the cards here. Makes it a lot simpler. You don't have to send him an email. You don't have to send him the wording of the cards. He doesn't have to mail it for you. So I have the cards here today. They're really nice cards, and if you've been to the card store recently, you know you're paying $4, $5, $6 for cards. This is what they look like. It's the Wailing Wall, and it's blank on the inside, and on the back it says that you've contributed to, I think somewhere it says that.
Yeah, the very bottom.
At the bottom it says, a generous contribution has been made in your honor to the South Jersey Men's Club. So we've got stamped envelopes, we've got a beautiful card. They're normally $5. We're offering them 3 for $10. So if you have a $10 bill, come and see me or raise your hand and I'll come and get you. Okay, I see a couple of hands. All right, great. Let me know. I've got, I don't know, 10 sets at least, so that's it. for me.
Can I
unless,
address the club?
Sure. You don't need me, right?
No. I just want to let the club know, my father had passed away on Yom Kippur. And can you hear me now? Yeah, okay. My father had passed away on September 25th, Yom Kippur. He had been in hospice and was staying in the skilled nursing facility at Lionsgate. We actually brought him here in January after his wife passed away in Arizona, and he had a very bad fall, and he was in and out of ICU and trauma and rehab. I had always hoped that he would attend one of these meetings, but that was not possible. But I do want to acknowledge and thank South Jersey Men's Club for buying a tree from Jewish National Fund in his memory.
We also, the Man of the Year celebration for the Regional Men's Club is going to be December 14, 17, and we need to get people who want to go up to by December 4th. The board is subsidizing half of the price. It's $90, so we will subsidize half if you want to go. The honoree is Mike Perloff. Now that's not going to get too many people, but so Mike Perloff is going to be the Man of the Year this year for us.
Temple Beth Shalom.
Yeah, it's a Temple Beth Shalom in Pennsylvania. Yeah, Elkins Park. Yeah, so you'll have to drive there. Okay.
I'm making an announcement that I'm looking for any volunteer to help me with doing the videotaping, because I'll be going to Florida in January, so I need about 4 or 5 months of help on the video recording side. So I know Eli is going to help a little bit, but I need maybe 1 or 2 more people to help with that. So if you're interested, come and see me and talk to me. Thanks.
Come on, Gloria.
I'm going to introduce Gloria Andersen. I'm going to let her give you her own bio.
Thank you. I'm going to move this up just a little bit. If anybody on Zoom can't hear me, or if anybody here can't hear me, is that better?
That's better, yes.
Okay. My name is Gloria Andersen. I've been fairly active with Americans United for Separations Church and State since about 2004. Before that, I was active in church-state issues. You can blame the guy in the back. He kept taking jobs all over the country, and as we moved into new communities and my kids were handed nativity calendars and my kids were told to pray before class, even though it was well after the Supreme Court decisions, I had to say something. I'm very, very grateful to the Anti-Defamation League for doing it in a peaceful, nice fashion. But Americans United is my love because it has only one issue: separation of church and state. My expectation is some of the people here are actually Jewish. And you might actually understand the importance of separation of church and state.
Louder.
Louder?
Yeah, turn the mic up.
Okay, I have no, do I have a way to turn the mic up? Could someone help me?
Turn the mic up as far as it goes.
Try now.
Is this a little better?
Too loud.
Okay, the odd thing was that I spent about a year of my life having to talk in front of a mic. No one said louder, so apparently in my old age I'm getting a lot softer. Church-state separation protects everyone's right to believe or not believe as long as they don't harm others. Americans United is not the Freedom from Religion group. We're made up of atheists. Our president, Rachel Laser, just happens to be a practicing Jew. It's the idea that the separation is there for a reason. just a really, really fast looking at history. That went too fast. Okay, it just hit me. Can I turn this around slightly like this for a second?
Yeah.
Okay, the senators and representatives, when they met in 1787 to write the Constitution, were very well aware of the problems of having state intermingled with church. If you remember, the Anglican Church was the official church of England, and whether or not you were Anglican, you paid a 10% tax to the church. Part of the Revolutionary War is we didn't want to pay those taxes, but that's a whole nother story. Right in the Constitution, Charles Pinckney had them put in. He suggested a few days before, but he'd been talking about it for months. The idea that there shouldn't be any requirement for somebody to be a particular religion in order to run for office. And what you have there is, no religious test shall ever be required as a qualification to any office or public trust under the United States. That is the only thing in the original Constitution except one mention of the Lord. Does anybody, this is a quiz, guys, there's got to be a lawyer here, where else is God or the Lord mentioned in the Constitution? First Amendment, but that's later. In 1787, is there any mention of God or the Lord? What? No.
That was Eisenhower.
No. Scott.
In the year of our Lord.
1787, the only place that God or the Lord is mentioned is in the date. And the date was actually put in by the printer. And that was a formal way of writing the date back then. The year of our Lord, 1787. There was not an intent to put God in the Constitution. Yes, it was a trick question. I put up the present New Jersey Constitution instead of the one from 1780s. But the New Jersey Constitution always had separation of church and state from the beginning of them having written constitutions or documents. But the one in 1947 is particularly important because it says nobody's going to be denied the right to pray the way they want to pray. And you can read the actual words up there, or you can trust me. Also, in New Jersey Constitution, there shall be no establishment of one religious sect in preference to another. No religious or racial test shall be required as qualifications for any office. So not only at the federal level, but at the state level, you're not required to be Christian. This is not a Christian nation. It wasn't meant to be a Christian nation. It is a nation where the majority of people are Christian. Very different. Whoa. I'm sorry. What I did miss, well, whatever's missed is missed. Here it is. There shall be no establishment of one religious sect in preference to another, and no religious or racial test shall be required as qualifications for any office or public trust. Case happened. Does anyone remember the last time I spoke to this group at all? It's been years. Okay, at the time I got up and I said I was a named plaintiff in a case, and the case was against Hendricks, who was at the time, she was the Secretary of Education in the state of New Jersey, because she was going to give $10.6 million to a yeshiva down in Lakewood that didn't educate women, that didn't educate all different kinds of Jews, and $0.6 million to a seminary down in Princeton. And the case did sort of drag through the courts slowly. But because of this line, no one religion gets a religious preference. It's right in the New Jersey Constitution. And ultimately what happened, believe it or not, 2 years ago, is the case was resolved and the money was not given. It wasn't a matter of me being anti-Semitic. It's a matter of if they gave it to that institution, they would have to give it to all institutions. And that particular institution would have gender and would have religion as a qualification for going to it. Our founding fathers knew. Our founding fathers knew. I had a little bit more light 2 seconds ago, and somebody just probably made it easier for you to see the... I am getting older. Thank you. I don't know if I need that much, or there's no choice. Okay, go off, I guess. Go off. Okay, so our founding fathers knew from experience that a union of government and religion tends to destroy government and degrade religion. When they put in the Bill of Rights, by the way, does anyone know the number the First Amendment originally was when it was proposed? What it would have been? Number 3, okay. But the First Amendment, which is now the first one that was actually passed as the First Amendment, says that they can't make any laws respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof. Now, until after the Civil War and the 14th Amendment, that only applied to the federal government. The 14th Amendment meant that due process was also applied to the states. Okay. Now I'll get to modern times a little bit. 1947 is the first case that's concerning schools, due process, and state legislation. Everson versus Board of Education of the Township of Ewing, right here in New Jersey, meant the taxpayer reimbursed New Jersey taxpayers were reimbursed if their children were on public education to go to school. It was written in a way that that could be religious schools or it could be public schools. It was brought to court, and surprisingly, the court decided, yes, transportation was fine because the payment did not go to religious institutions, and the First Amendment could not be used as religion's adversary. In other words, the kids were going to be on the bus, whether it was public or private school. We would be punishing those going to private school if we didn't do the same thing. And the funds did not go directly to churches or to the schools. They went to the taxpayer, to the children. 1948, McCollum versus Board of Education. No taxpayer religious education during school time. In other words, up until this time, it was perfectly legal for the school to set aside an hour or two, bring in the local ministers, and have the ministers teach in public school during school time. Jim McCollum's mother sued. She won. And by the way, I love that her name is Vashti McCollum. If you know who Vashti is in the Bible, I just love it. Anyway, Vashti McCollum sued. She won, ultimately won, and things were happily ever after. We didn't have the pull-out programs. Her biggest argument was that they were putting her son in a janitor's closet. It didn't make sense for the resources to go that way. Where's Mr. Fleischman? Is he here? No. There's a Mr. Fleischman that I thought was a member of Men's Club. and he said that he'd be the one to do Abington. Well, if you get to see him afterwards, he's the one that'll do Abington. And, but I'll do it a little bit. Abington School District versus Shemp happened in 1963. How many of you are older than me and remember saying prayer or doing a Bible reading in public schools? Yes, and I remember it too. Okay. This goes away with the Shemp case. And basically, no Bible, no prayer, and it makes sense. Because for the kids that are sitting there in school, it was a way, purposefully, to make you feel like an outsider if you weren't participating. So life is happily ever after now, isn't it? And I could go to school, and you could go to school, and we're kind of happy. And then just to cement the happiness, in 1971,
I have a question on that.
yes,
Did that also exclude singing Christmas carols in the schools?
no, and unfortunately I don't have the date for that, but Scott will Google really fast. There was a Supreme Court case about that. Christmas was deemed a secular holiday. Now, and also Christian music was deemed musical history. They weren't, well, I'm going to ask to cheat. Can I explain Lemon v. Kurtzman, which will make what I'm going to say in 2 seconds make more sense? You'll forgive me. 1971, Lemon v. Kurtzman was passed. And basically what it said, and you can read up there, or I get to read down here, is in order for something to do with religion to have to be done by the federal government, it had to have a legitimate secular purpose. B, not have the primary effect of either advancing or inhibiting religion. Or 3, not result in an excessive entanglement of government and religion. So some of those Christmas carols were quite legal after that. I could sing Jingle Bells to my heart's desire. Some of the more religious ones, most school districts said was only the choir, but nice Jewish boys were in the choir too. There was a little bit of an argument, and now I'm going to tell you one thing about Christmas, or any of these things I'm telling you. If you don't stand up and say, hey guys, I'm not sure that's kosher, then practices go on. And sometimes practices go on without anybody even realizing that they might hurt somebody. And I'll give you an example that's not in my notes. You'll forgive me. We moved to Hudson, Ohio, someplace around 1985, 1986, so that's when this story is from. And my son was in first grade, and right after Thanksgiving, he was handed a nativity calendar of math problems to do up until Christmas. And every single problem had to do with Christmas. And not just Christmas and Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, Christmas and the birth and the Magi and the whole 9 yards. So I went to the teacher and she said, well, you know, I already handed it out. That's my lesson plan. There's nothing I can really do. And I thought about it. I used to teach. Yeah, I guess there's not much to do. But then she said something. She said, I've been handing it out for years. And we had a local little synagogue, and I went to the people in the local little synagogue. I went to a conservative synagogue up north, but I went to the local little synagogue, and I said, what do you usually do? We pull our kids out of school. It's only in the first 3 grades, so don't worry about it. That was the answer. And I thought that's not an answer. So I called the Anti-Defamation League up in Cleveland. And in Cleveland they said, well, at this point that's going to be the answer until January, and then we're going to call the school to complain. You don't want to be the Grinch that takes away Christmas this year. And they were right. They had a program called Your Neighbor Celebrates. They came in, does this answer your question? So yes, if those hymns or whatever your choir was singing cross the line, it would be up to a parent to complain. That's what they call a plaintiff. Now, in this case, ADL didn't even go as far as writing a letter. They just suggested a program that the school could give to the teachers would get CEU credits, and everybody would be really happy. And we were pretty happy. So, but no, Christmas is a secular holiday. Sorry about that. And I get a little, side note, this has nothing to do with AU, nothing to do with separation of church and state. I get a little upset at the people that insist on having the Hanukkah on public lands, because that makes the Hanukkah a secular symbol. The Christmas tree, I have no problem with it becoming secular. I have a problem with my Hanukkah. Hanukkah is a menorah for those being secular, but that's just me. I'm one of those. Okay. Meanwhile, so you have Lemon v. Kurtzman. I go all through school, my kids go all through school protected by Lemon v. Kurtzman. Happily ever after. A little glitch happened when we lived in Illinois. I had a child that was a nationally ranked swimmer. Yes, I'm bragging. And in 9th grade, he made the varsity team. Not a surprise, varsity high school team. And the very first meet that they went to, the coaches gathered, the captains gathered them around and said, you have to come into this circle, a pep talk. But the
Prayer circle.
yeah, well, it was a prayer circle. You were in the same team.
A lot of teams did that, especially the football teams.
You need to gather around for the prayer circle. And at first my son's thinking, okay, it's going to be kind of a neutral thing, until they got to, in the name of Jesus Christ our Lord, and the fact that they were going to pray that Jesus entered your soul during this circle. He was a little annoyed at that, and then he starts looking at the other kids in the circle, and kids that he knew were Muslims, kids that he knew were Jewish, kids that he knew were ardent atheists, and they're all going along with this in the name of Jesus Christ. And he comes home and he goes, Mom, he said, this just does not seem right, and it's awkward, and we all have we're looking at our shoes. So I went to talk to the coach, and I explained about Lemon v. Kurtzman, and he said, but it's student run. I said, okay, then you need to let the whole team know that they can step back. And he's right. The prayer circle was student run, that they could step back and not be part of the prayer circle. The coach was reluctant to do that, but the athletic director was really willing to do that, especially as I walked in with Lemon versus Kurtzman in my lap. It helps. It always helps. We never even got as far as a letter. They didn't need the legal letter. They knew what the right thing was to do. And it was amazing. That prayer circle had maybe a third of the team in it from then on. Yes.
In this context, movies, like if it was a movie classroom, Fiddler on the Roof, 10 Commandments, what is your opinion in this context?
It depends how you're showing it. And please don't, I had a Hebrew school class once. Yes, I have another life. I used to teach Hebrew school to high schoolers. And we went through the 10...
I'm talking about in the public school setting.
No, but we ripped out the 10 Commandments for all the things that really weren't according to the Bible, so it's not. It really, I don't know. It would have to be the setting. It would have to be what they said before or afterwards. I think Fiddler on the Roof is a musical. It's performed all over the country. I got to hear, in Illinois, I got to hear
Japan.
L'Chaim. They sang L'Chaim, L'Chaim, to life, L'Chaim. Yeah, you can do art, you can do music. I'm not going to take away the study of Rubens because there's separation of church and state. You get to learn about something. There's a difference between learning about something and being forced to participate in something. Does that make sense?
Yes.
In high school, in public high school, I taught comparative religions. You can teach comparative religions, you can't teach one specific religion. But that was under 1971 Lemon versus Kurtzman. Many of you read about Kennedy versus Bremerton. Any of you read about that one?
That's the recent one, like the last couple of years?
Yep. 2022. This is the one that I literally, my husband will tell you, I sat down and cried. It negates Lemon v. Kurtzman. So forget what I just taught you. That no longer legally exists. I had videos, and Randy told me, and I didn't realize it, that had I brought the videos on a memory stick, which is where I have them, you could actually see Kennedy praying on the 50-yard line. The Supreme Court ruled, please don't let that be my phone. Okay. What the Supreme Court ruled in Kennedy versus Bremerton is they ruled that he could pray quietly, that all he was doing was praying quietly. I can show you the videos. He gathered round the team. He sat on that 50-yard line. The other teams, this is over an 8-year period that this was going on, and it was getting progressively that if you didn't go onto the 50-yard line, you weren't really part of the team, as he sat there, led them in prayer, and hoped that Jesus, and prayed that Jesus would enter their hearts. That's Kennedy versus Bremerton. And the Supreme Court ruled it was legal because he's just quietly praying, and the other children just, I shouldn't call them children, the participants, the players, were joining him out of goodwill. And if you play in high school sports, yeah, okay, if the coach is leading a prayer and you don't see an alternative, and you know that that coach is going to decide if you have field time or not, if you have playing time or not, or a scholarship or not, would you consider that a bit coercive? Yes. If anybody wants to see the videos, I'll lend you. And this is the scary part, but realize the Supreme Court, a lot of times it's their aides that review the videos. I have the videos that were given as evidence to the Supreme Court. It is not quiet. What he did was not quiet. Now, for years, it was just a few kids joining him, and then more and more and more. And again, if nobody complains, does anybody know what happens? If a tree falls in the forest and nobody's there, it was one of those situations. Nobody was there. Okay, but here they were. No surprise, Gorsuch, Roberts, Thomas, Alito, Barrett, and Kavanaugh signed on that this is fine. Sotomayor, Breyer, and Kagan wrote the dissent. The court based all this, again, I'm going to stress this, without actually viewing the evidence, the video evidence. Now, I'm going to explain, well, how many of you know what a named plaintiff is? Okay, then I'm going to really fast explain this. Kennedy is the plaintiff in this case. In order to be the plaintiff in a case, you have to have standing. So, Kennedy was living in Washington. The school was Washington. When they asked him to desist, he moved to Florida. But immediately, no one was upset about that because I believe he had a sick member in his family, or that's what he stated. But they never did find out which member of his family was sick. He moved to Florida. Once he moved to Florida, would he have standing? Not in the real world. This is scary. This is what old ladies like me sit down and cry about. He really probably shouldn't have had standing, but in the justice's defense, okay, that's the 25-minute mark? Okay, and I know I'm only supposed to go 40 minutes, tops. Keep going. I can do this. Okay, so in the Supreme Court's defense, they may or may not have known about this in time. He was offered back his job in the fall of 22. He didn't come back because of maybe an illness in his family. In 23, he came back for one game and returned to Florida, where he's on the speaking circuit, wrote a book, and there's a movie coming out about him. Okay, so that's the Kennedy case. And you think, what of this? I'm going to tell you the what of this because I don't think this principal would have had the nerve to do this. This is this year. This is September. It's a young lady named Kaylee Timonet. Kaylee Timonet was an honor student. Kelly Timonet was the president of student council. Kelly Timonet made the mistake of going to a party after homecoming that was a private party with her mother present, and she danced. There was a DJ there who videotaped her. She happens to be a very good dancer. If you Google her, you can see the dance is still up on YouTube. She danced. That's what she did. Anybody have a problem with that? She might have twerked a little bit, but nothing horrible. She was dressed from here down to there. So we can complain about her dress, but did I also mention it's a private party with her mother present? Yeah. Okay, a couple days later, the incident happened on September 30th, 2023. We're not talking a million years ago. And she's at a private party in her home, and the principal calls her down a few days later. And he tells her, you can no longer be student council president. I was writing recommendations that are due today, but I'm no longer writing your recommendations, and we're deciding whether or not to suspend you from school.
It's a public school, too.
Oh, did I mention it's a public school? Thank you, Scott. It's a public school.
What state is this?
This was Louisiana, Walker, Louisiana. Okay, so he then tells her that she's no longer living in the Lord's way. He printed Bible verses for her to read. And then Kaylee and her mother spoke out, probably on social media, and that I don't know for sure. And her friends launched a campaign saying, let the girl dance. AU got into it. A couple of other groups got into it. October 8th, St. Pierre posted a message on the school's Facebook page apologizing for his actions. He told Timonet and her family that she would face no disciplinary actions. He stated that he understood that it was not his responsibility to determine what students or other religious beliefs may be. That should be the responsibility of the individual. But it was too late. Because of the principal's actions, she lost out on those scholarships. Rachel reported, St. Pierre, that's the principal's name, requested a leave, but he has since decided to retire. So let the girl dance. There's other legislation being suggested right now. I'm going to do the scary things first, and then I'm going to do a happy thing. Texas legislation, SB 763, chaplains, instead of hiring school counselors, this would allow them to hire chaplains for each school. Tell me that's not an establishment of religion. More than 100 professional chaplains in Texas signed a letter urging Texas public schools to refrain from hiring chaplains. Now, the next one is the one that I was worried about being taped. So if I slip and say the name of the school or anything that would identify the school, this whole tape goes in the garbage. The head coaches of a basketball, football, and baseball team of a Division I school use their official positions to encourage their students to attend a religious rally complete with baptisms at the end. There's also an official team chaplain for the basketball team at the school. At the very least, it makes students of other religions or no religions feel like unwelcome outsiders. This is a stretch from the Kennedy decision. Even the Kennedy's decision said, okay, he can pray on the sidelines. This is a bit of a stretch. AU wrote a letter to the university about this issue and even cited the decisions in the town of Greece, which I didn't talk about. Town of Greece's legislative prayer is legal. That if you come in, if you go to a legislative meeting, that they can have a minister do a blessing, a prayer before the meeting, as long as there's no prejudice about which minister is chosen. When you look at the tapes from Greece, which if any of you want them, I also have those on a memory stick. God bless memory sticks. If you look at the prayers, they actually came in vestments. Sometimes they came with the incense and the whole thing. Sometimes sweet little Boy Scouts were there because they were going to get awards later in the meeting. Sometimes it was just a petitioner who wanted a zoning ordinance. Listening to 20-minute, 25-minute prayers, they've gotten a little shortened, but those prayers are legal before meetings. They wrote a letter. We're waiting to see what happens with the letter. One of the other letters written in October 23, an organization delivers food from the poor. That's nice, isn't it? And they bring the food to the schools on Fridays so that the children can bring the bags of food home. Any problems there? It's coming. Okay, along with the food are slips of paper that include what churches they could attend and Bible verses and prayers. So a letter got written. Again, this stuff happens, and if you don't complain, it keeps happening. Library and school boards are having problems even right here in New Jersey. If you can attend a meeting, you'll see things like the Pride Boys, Moms in Touch, Liberty Institute. I love the name of that, Liberty Institute. But anyway, a simple Google will give you the present list, including of books that are being denied, including To Kill a Mockingbird, and the one that I really love is Starbellies is on that list. Do you remember Dr. Seuss's Starbellies?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. That's one of the banned books. Okay. A win. In Maryland, a court rejected Maryland parents' demand to opt out of any book that mentions LGBTQ. Examples given was some religions do not believe, and this is what the Maryland court said. Some religions don't believe women should work outside of the home, but you don't have the right to erase history and take every woman that works outside of the home out of the history books. Now this is in Alabama, where you had a strict laws about, well, they were going to have book banning. And in Alabama, the librarians, trying to be proactive, used AI in order to pick out the books that they had to take out of the shelves. One of the books that was taken off the shelves was Read Me a Story, Stella, by Marie Louise Gay. It was actually almost removed. The library admitted it was a mistake, but it gives you an idea what book banning does. The library thought that they would be proactive. Okay, now, Good News Club. Book banning. The Good News Club. Good News Club has been around since, I believe, the late 1980s, 1990s. It's an evangelical group of Christians that if the school allows after-school programs to rent space in the school, they go in and they have wonderful parties and they have great food. Cake and cookies and candy and song and music, and they're going to teach you how to put Christ in your heart. Now, way back in 2001, this was deemed as legal, that if you're renting to other after-school groups, then because we have freedom of speech, you have to also rent for the Good News, to the Good News Club. And depending on the school, some schools hand out flyers during homeroom, and this is for grades kindergarten to grade 6. And if you're the little kid that isn't going to the Good News Club, you might feel a little bit bad, but it's legal, totally legal. Wild story. About 8 years ago, there's a group called the Satanist Temple. They have nothing to do with Satan. They were created to counteract some of this stuff and to go into schools and to give something other. Now, I didn't make this up. Saucon Valley School, the one that this case is about, is right outside of Hellerton, Pennsylvania. Not me, I didn't make it up. Okay, so what happens is the Satanist Club, the After School Satan Club, signs up and they're going to be there after school. And they got permission right away because remember that decision in 2001 said if you're renting to one, you have to rent to all. But some of the parents, and this is where you wouldn't say it like this, some of the parents in their Christian nationalism decided to protest, which they have every right to do, and I will protect them. I also am a member of the ACLU. But they were threatening people, threatening children, and the school decided to pull the plug on the after-school Satan Club. Well, AU brought that one, and it went to court, and it actually went up through the system really fast. And what the system decided in May is they have to allow the after-school Satan Club. Not only, I'm sorry, this was an ACLU lawsuit. Not only do they have to allow the after-school Satan Club, but they have to, the school system has to pay $2,000 in legal costs to the ACLU. The Satan Club only asked for $1. They wanted enough to show that they won, but not enough to take money from the school system. So they only asked for $1. So far, the Good News Club is not meeting in the Saucon Valley School, probably because they know if they meet, the Satanists will also meet. They've got competition. Now, by the way, the Satanists don't go into any school that doesn't already have a Good News Club, and they don't go into any school where parents didn't ask them to go in. And they usually don't stay in the schools very long. They're there to prove a point. Okay, I'm going to try to rush through. Vouchers. Is everybody aware that vouchers are bad because they take money from the public schools? Yes.
It's $200,000 they have to pay ACLU.
I didn't say that?
You said 2,000.
I'm sorry. Okay, a correction for the tape. It was $200,000 in legal fees they had to pay the ACLU. It's the insurance company for the school that pays it, but if you have enough of these suits, it does raise the cost of insurance for the school. Thank you, Scott. Okay, he's heard this before. Multiple times. Fact checking. Okay, vouchers. Vouchers take money. The reality is they take money from public schools. They give them to the private schools that the kids want to attend to. In a state like Illinois, 95% of the vouchers went to religious education. That would be fine, kind of, maybe on paper, even if you use the lemon test. Other than these religious schools do not have to take everybody. They don't have to take special needs students. They don't have to take you even according to race because it's their religion. They don't have to take you if you're poor. They don't have to take you. So a lot of the expensive schools where you have an average, the voucher is the average what a student costs, they only take the students that cost the least, leaving the public schools bereft of funds. Illinois started a voucher system in 2017. They let it sunset. That's the good news. That's why you waited to hear me until November, because this is just news from about a few weeks ago. Come to 2024, any funds that have been distributed will have been distributed, but no new vouchers will go to private schools. Huge win. It was 250, and he'll check me, it's $250 million of taxpayer dollars was going from the general revenue fund to private schools. The principle of church-state separation wins. Bad news. Oklahoma not only wants a voucher system, but they're going to charter religious schools. Now realize, by virtue of it being a religious school, you can't monitor them the same way as a public school. They don't have to have certified teachers. They don't have to teach all subjects. They don't have to teach. You can't, remember that wall of separation? Well, religion is smart enough that they say, okay, you can't interfere. It's religion. But then they take the money. They take the money without the responsibility. We don't know what's happening with Oklahoma right now. It's a lawsuit. Okay, very, very fast now. A parolee, and I am going to speed through now. I'm going to skip that one. We'll get to that later. There. Okay. There was a parolee in Colorado named Mark Janney. Mark Janney was out on his parole, and the parole officer said it wouldn't be a good idea for him to go back to his family and friends because that's how he got in trouble in the first place. I have no problem with that. He then put him in a Christian group home. In this home, he had to pray daily, he had to read the Bible, and he refused to. What did his parole officer do? Put him back in jail. Put him back in jail. Janney versus Gomez went to the U.S. Court of Appeals, the 10th Circuit, and he won. He won. The parole officer is no longer working as a parole officer also. The 10th Circuit said that every person has the basic right to be free from state-sponsored religious coercion in today's ruling, which reversed the district court's decision and determined that Janney may take his case to trial. Here's the bad news. It can go up through the courts. And we don't know after that Kennedy decision what's going to happen. Roe v. Wade, I say. Okay, here's the good news. I'll go fast. 1973, you had Roe v. Wade, and basically a woman's health, with some restrictions, was between her and the doctor. It was a medical decision. 2022, the Dobbs decision. It's not a medical decision. It is a decision the state is involved with. And by the way, I would suspect that maybe 90% of you are Jewish. For Jews, the woman's life comes first. If there's a choice between the woman and the fetus, the woman's life in Judaism comes first. Inception does not, being a living being does not start at conception. Help me with the word. Conception, sorry, thank you. Okay, so Mississippi's law banning nearly all abortions after 15 weeks is legal, which triggered a whole bunch of laws. And we'll get to Texas and Florida in a second around the country. The good news is Ohio countered that. Issue 1 passed.
Part of their Constitution.
It is now part of the Constitution. It was a ballot initiative, but now it's 30 days is up. It's part of the Constitution, and it establishes an individual right to one's own reproductive medical treatment, including but not limited to abortion. It also creates legal protections for anyone who assists a person with receiving reproductive medical treatment. The amendment grants the treating physician the authority to determine on a case-by-case basis, not the legislature, whether an unborn child is viable, and grants exceptions for abortions at any stage of pregnancy to protect the health or life of the mother. As of August 25th, 2022, Texans who perform abortions face up to life in prison, $100,000 fine, and some Texas localities are actually writing ordinances that if you travel through their county with a pregnant woman who's seeking abortion, you can be fined, you can be jailed. It's amazing. Although the one nice thing is try to enforce that one. Do you stop every car that's driving through your town? I don't know. Okay, last but not least, and I will make it fast. This is the good news, and I thought I put fans where I could reach them. There's, DeSantis has a rule that placed prohibitions on drag shows. And this was signed earlier this year, and an Orlando bar called Hamburger Mary's sued. Do some of you have the fans on the table at all? Nobody? Okay, all summer long AU was giving out fans that looked like this, but more importantly, they were running this case up to the court. It was actually heard by the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court decided the drag shows are taking place at Hamburger Mary's. It's free speech. You guys, when you were younger, you watched Milton Berle, you watched Some Like It Hot, you watched,
Mrs. Doubtfire.
Mrs. Doubtfire. We've been watching drag shows forever. They are officially legal. I knew you guys would be really upset about that one. And I wanted to end it. That case came through a couple weeks ago, November 16th. And that's why you didn't have me speak in September, because you wanted to have me end it with good news. As you're seeing the examples that I just gave, separation of church and state is incredibly important, especially if you're a minority, or maybe if you don't believe in God at all, or Maybe if you don't believe in the religion that's the main religion of where you're living. Very, very important. So this is the one organization that has only one purpose: maintaining separation of church and state. I have a QR code that those of you that are adept with your phones can get more information, sign up. I have sign-up sheets. We do have a local little group that meets. Yes, sir.
Atheism. Now, that's an ism, but is that considered, there are many people that are atheistic. Is that considered within the same protocol?
It's considered the fact that if you look back at the Constitution, nobody can be forced to profess something that's not their belief. If they have no beliefs, that's fine. They can't be forced to have a belief they don't want.
But can atheism be considered a secularized type of religion?
No, it doesn't have to be. It doesn't have to be. Now, you have secular groups that would present themselves as such, and that's fine, but that's not the issue. The issue is you shouldn't be forced to profess a belief in something that you don't believe in. The First Amendment gives you the right to believe or not believe. Yes, sir.
2 points. One, recently, within the past couple of years, the Supreme Court basically said that money can be spent by government for secular activities of a parochial school. I think there was one about the
Can I give you $100 for it? He told me I was out of time, and I wanted to cover that so badly. May I?
All right, that's
Yes.
because money is fungible.
Okay.
But I have another point.
Can I do this point and go to the other point? I promise. But my mind only works. Okay, way back in the 1970s, I was a grants administrator for Head Start. When we placed a lot of the Head Start grants, I was Tennessee, Kentucky, in case anybody wants to know, and when we placed those grants, we were very, very careful that there was always an amendment, that it was always in writing, that even though we gave the grant to a CAP agency, a community action program, they might have rented the space from a church or a synagogue, because churches and synagogues are safe places. Also because the church and synagogue used the classrooms during the weekend, and back then there were less preschools. They didn't use it during the week. So we rented space, and there was always an amendment on the legislation that said something to the effect of that those institutions could not hire according to religion, they couldn't serve according to religion, and they couldn't teach religion. In 2004, I'm getting on my high horse here, my congressman in Illinois suggested that they leave off the Miller Amendment, which the amendment would have been called that year, and thus created what we now know of as faith-based programs, where public money goes into private institutions, religious institutions. And you no longer actually needed the CAP agencies. And there have been cases where they were allowed to fire according to religion because the person might have taught Sunday school and preschool. And remember, religious institutions, you can't go into and give them rules about their religion. So as you're asking this question, do I believe it should be legal? No. Are we fighting it? Yes. Are there cases that are going up through the courts about this? Yes. Can I talk about them? No.
My other point is, what concerns do you have about the new Speaker of the House and his stated views about this being a Christian nation.
Okay, here's the problem. It's not the not get political, isn't the biggest problem. The biggest problem is right now I said enough AU pushing that I'm part of a nonprofit. And a nonprofit can't tell you how to vote or not to vote or what I think of a particular politician. I can say that some of the things he declared, some of the things he's done, like putting the tree outside of his office, is everyone familiar with the fir tree and what that represents? What? The pine tree. It's a pine tree flag that's outside of his office, and it represents Christianity.
We're a Christian nation.
We're a Christian nation. So yes, I can talk about specific things that he's done.
Does not and will not take a position as regards.
Oh, I put magazines out, and you go to their site. They can take positions about particular things he does.
Not against him as a candidate.
But not as a person.
Yes.
So I have grandchildren who go to day schools in New York City, and their schools get money from the city of New York for special needs programs.
Yes.
The same way that the public schools do. Does your organization have any opposition to that?
Okay. When you're taking the money from special needs, you're. Can I not speak for the organization and speak for me? My answer, and I know the way New York State does it, those schools are taking special needs children. That money is going to educate special needs children. And the way New York State operates it, even though it might be a religious day school, for that funding, they do follow it and they do make sure that it's used. And I can cite cases where the money's been taken away because it wasn't used properly. In most states, that's not the case.
So the organization for separation of church and state has, you think philosophically has no problem with that? I'm just wondering.
I actually don't know. That's the answer. Anilo Yudayat. I don't know.
You claim that, or you feel that the Christmas tree is not a religious symbol, but a Hanukkah is. How do you feel about Chabad doing a public Hanukkah lighting in Cherry Hill, getting extra police protection?
Okay, I think when you're talking about extra police protection, that's a safety issue. Chabad pays taxes, I pay taxes. All I was saying is I really didn't want it on public land, but yes, they pay taxes. I deserve protection.
You touched on vouchers. Aren't they prevalent in a lot of states?
Yeah, they are. Yeah, they are, but they seem to be going away. If you realize that Illinois is not a blue state, and even in Illinois, they said this system is not working. You can't follow the money. You can't certify what the money is being used for.
I don't want to interrupt what you're
No.
saying. Does AU have any positions on situations such as the Orthodox situation in education in places like Lakewood?
As long as they're not taking public funds.
They just end up controlling the whole system of education.
Oh, okay.
Okay? I don't know, I'm not sure, but.
No, you're right. Okay, in Lakewood, what happened is a lot of the Haredi who, and I do want to separate Haredi from modern Orthodoxy. This is Haredi.
Yeah.
Yeah, very different, very different. In Lakewood, the Haredi have gotten on to the school boards and have attempted to defund public schools because their kids aren't going there. Does AU have a thought about some of the things they already do? Obviously, we spent 8 years on a lawsuit making sure that $10.6 million didn't go to the yeshiva down there. So yes, they do, but they still have a right to their own day schools. And unfortunately, unless a parent in that district brings a case to prove that the public schools are being defunded, you have to have a plaintiff. You have to have a plaintiff with standing. Does that make sense? I can't complain about something in Lakewood. I can complain about something that's affecting me. Any other questions?
It's a whole other subject, colleges, but the discrimination of Jewish students getting into Ivy League colleges is rampant, and it's well documented. And they get public funding.
I don't know about the entrance. I don't know if I know my kid went to Wharton, but just
that was then. This is now.
That was then.
This is now.
I don't know, and it would have to be somebody that applied to the school, got rejected, and then tries to prove that somebody with less qualifications got in and they didn't. I can't be the plaintiff. This is why AU encourages people to call. They have a contact number. They have a hotline. If you don't report it, it didn't happen. Yes, sir.
So the ADL received a lot of complaints from parents of college students confronting some of this discrimination. Did they ever call upon your organization, ADL, because of the fact that there's so much government funding of faculty, coursework, curriculum that specifically teaches discrimination and only allows certain students to enter the classes and keeps other students out?
The question was, and it's a good one, do these organizations ever work together? Oh my gosh, they do. They have conferences together, they meet together, the lawyers meet together. When I had my lawsuit, it was AU that started the suit, but because of the New Jersey ACLU having more lawyers control in New Jersey, and it was going through the New Jersey courts, it started with New Jersey. Had it gone to the Supreme Court, it would have been AU lawyers. So very often it starts with ADL or ACLU and ends up AU lawyers, and sometimes it ends up flipping. But they do work together, yes. Thank you. Thank you very, very much. Can I end with thanking? Just a fast thing. Church-state separation protects everyone's right to believe or not believe as long as they don't harm others. Thank you very much.
Okay, wait. Now you're going to get the
Thank you. Could I have a copy of the picture, please? Ma'am?
Oh, thanks. Okay, we're doing the 50-50, $57.
I marked him ahead of time.
Now, if your husband wins, I know it's fixed.
But if he doesn't win, then it's fixed.
The last three digits, 937.
That's the wrong number.
Got it?
That's not his purpose.
Okay.
I do have a sign-in sheet over there. I've got literature. If I don't get rid of that literature in the next 6 months, it becomes outdated.
Okay, Pearl will send me a text to tell everybody, because he's not here, to thank everybody who worked in the police breakfast. We had a very successful, we had almost 240 some people there. So he just wants to thank everybody for it, okay? Thank you.